What's good, y'all? It is finally time for preseason preview 2024. I am super excited to finally be able to roll out these videos for you guys. This has been something that I've been planning for the last few months now at this point, and I'm super excited to have it come out. I think you guys are going to love it. In case you guys are new to the channel and don't know what these preseason preview videos are, basically I'm going to have a video dedicated to all 30 NBA teams, and I'm going to go through and give like an overview of their offseason, a preview into what this season could maybe hold for them, and just, kind of talk about each team individually for a full video. And in this first one, we are doing my hometown Knicks. Shout out to the Knicks. There's no other team that I would rather start off with. In case you guys are not already, I'm gonna leave a reminder to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out when I do your favorite team. But man, I'm excited. Let's just get right into it. Let's start by looking at the key additions the Knicks made. The Knicks made one of the bigger splashes this offseason, going out and trading with their crosstown rival Brooklyn Nets to acquire Mikal Bridges and complete the Villanova core. It didn't stop there though for the Knicks. They also had a very productive draft, including drafting Marquette's Tyler Kolek in the second round. If this is the first time you guys have ever seen me, I would think it's important for you to know I have been asking the Knicks to trade for Mikal Bridges for like a season and a half at this point. I have been very adamant of saying Mikal Bridges is the perfect puzzle piece, the missing guy, the missing link to this team to make it go over that next level. Just fit-wise, chemistry-wise, skill set, everything Mikal brings to the table is everything the Knicks need, and I am so happy that he is on the team. And a lot of the dialogue has been, which version of Mikal will the Knicks get? Will they get the Brooklyn Nets version, where he's more of an offensive-oriented guy? His defense isn't really there, but he'll go out there and score for you. Or will they get the Suns version of Mikal, where he is an all-defensive player? I believe he was even like second or third in Defensive Player of the Year one of those seasons. One of the best 3-and-D guys playing an off-ball role. I think that they're going to get somewhere in between of that. I'm not saying that Mikal is going to be all defense or anything like that. I think he's going to be a good perimeter defender again and show a lot of that effort, considering he doesn't have to use all of his energy as the number one option like he did in Brooklyn. But I do think that we're going to see him open his offense a little bit more and show some of those flashes that he's shown in Brooklyn to create a little bit of his own shot. Of course, the ball is still going to heavily be in Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle's hands, but that third option is definitely where Mikal can slide in there. He also gives the Knicks some more size at that wing position. Besides OG Anunoby, the Knicks don't really have anyone that's big on the perimeter like that. Josh Hart plays bigger than what he is, but he's still only 6'4". Dante DiVincenzo's 6'3". Now having Mikal out there at 6'6", 6'7", he can really wreak some havoc, giving them some extra size also alongside OG. Man, it's going to be tough with those two paired together. And then also in the second round this year, the Knicks drafted Tyler Kolek out of Marquette. He had a very productive summer league. If you guys did not watch, he was the starting point guard for the Knicks summer league team, and he looked like a point guard. He was out there playmaking, distributing, not really turning the ball over too much. I think through his first 2 games, he had like 14 assists, 0 turnovers. That's exactly what you're looking for from your point guard, especially if you're Tom Thibodeau. His scoring was kind of hit or miss in games. Sometimes he was there, sometimes he looked like he really couldn't score much, but that's expected from a rookie. He's not going to be some completely 100% polished player right away. He did show some promising signs of being able to shoot the ball from beyond the arc, so that's something to look into. I really do like the draft choice of Tyler Kolek for the Knicks. I think he could be pretty productive off their bench for the future. Of course, you can't have additions without subtractions though, so let's take a look at some of the guys that the Knicks lost this offseason. Isaiah Hartenstein was a big contributor to the Knicks' success this season, but unfortunately for them, he went out and signed a huge $30 million a year contract with the OKC Thunder. And although Bojan Bogdanovic only played 29 games for the Knicks, he had some productive moments coming off their bench, but he is also gone as well. Isaiah Hartenstein's impact for the Knicks went way beyond his counting stats. When you look at those numbers, you could be a little underwhelmed by them. But when you watch the games, you could tell that Isaiah had a huge impact on the Knicks winning. And I think what made Isaiah so effective was the fact that he impacted the game in so many different ways. Rebounding was one of his biggest calling cards, especially offensive rebounding. Defensively, he was a great rim protector and rim deterrer. He also can guard the pick and roll very well. He had fast hands where he would always be getting out in passing lanes and deflections, all of those things. Offensively, he was a fantastic screener in the pick and roll with Jalen Brunson, one of the most effective plays in basketball last year. He was a part of that. Rolling to the basket, connected passing, whether it was on the short roll or out of the post. All around, Isaiah was making impacts throughout every single asset of the game, and he will definitely be missed and will definitely be loved in OKC. Then when you look at Bojan Bogdanovic, like I mentioned before, he only played 29 games for the Knicks this last season after they traded for him midway through. In the beginning, it was a little hard for him to find his footing with the Knicks, but as the games went on, he started to really, get more comfortable in his role. Into the playoffs, he had some pretty big games too against the Sixers before going down with injury then. He had a very short tenure with the Knicks this last season, but without him, they probably would not have been able to get the Mikal Bridges trade done, as he was the biggest salary filler in that trade. So although he really didn't give too much on the court, he still was a key piece to the Knicks building their team this season. So as a Knicks fan, thank you very much, Bojan. And now that we know who came and who went, let's take a look at the potential rotation for the Knicks this season. Now that the Knicks are back healthy, this depth chart is looking a lot deeper than it did last season. Starting at point guard, of course, they have Jalen Brunson. His backcourt mate is newly acquired Mikal Bridges, alongside with OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson. Then coming off their bench, they have rookie Tyler Kolek, Deuce McBride, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and Jericho Sims. Since it is still kind of early in the offseason, that potential depth chart isn't really solidified just yet, at least when you look at the bench. The starters, they're 100% solidified. That's who's going to start for the Knicks. The bench we'll get to talking to a little bit later, but when you look at the starters, in my opinion, there's no way you can look at those 5 guys and not say that's one of the best starting 5s in the entire NBA. When your worst player is Mitchell Robinson, you're looking pretty good. When your second worst player is OG Anunoby, you're looking immaculate. There's really not much that this starting lineup doesn't have for the Knicks. They have length and size. Everyone has great positional size except for Jalen Brunson at that point guard position. They have 3 above average shooters alongside Julius Randle, 2 who can get hot at any moment. They have creation from Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, even Mikal and OG can create their own shot a little bit there. Of course, they have defense with Mitchell Robinson, Mikal, and OG. I love this starting lineup. This is by far the best starting 5 I have ever seen from the Knicks in my lifetime. Then when you look at the bench for the Knicks, though, this is where those questions start to really come in. I'm not saying that the Knicks don't have good depth. I think that they actually have some of the best depth in the league. Their solidified 6th and 7th man are Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart. These 2 guys were super important starters for the Knicks throughout their playoff run last season, and they both were very, very productive, and now the Knicks have the luxury of just having them come off the bench. If they're hot in the game, if they're really impacting doing this, and that, they can just close out the game. If they're not, they don't need them to have those crazy games. They don't need Josh Hart to have a triple-double with 15 rebounds. They don't need Dante DiVincenzo to go out there and hit 5 threes in a game. They don't need that anymore, but they have the luxury of having them come off the bench and could potentially still give them that. Those questions I was talking about really come into play when you look at their backup point guard position. I was under the impression that Deuce McBride would be the backup point guard. I know they've said before that the Knicks kind of look at him more as a undersized 2 guard, an undersized off guard, but he's kind of in the past this last season be that backup point guard behind Jalen Brunson. Then a quote came out from Ian Bagley, who's a reporter for the Knicks. He said that Tyler Kolek is definitely the second point guard behind Jalen Brunson, and Deuce McBride, again, is looked at as a undersized 2 guard. And not only did he confirm that that's how the Knicks view these 2 players, but he also said that Deuce McBride will be in the regular rotation. So that kind of got me starting to think, Is Tom Thibodeau going to open the bench back up to a 10-man rotation and have Tyler Kolek and Deuce McBride be their backup guards, and that kind of just shifts everyone down? Josh Hart back to being power forward. Dante runs some small forward off the bench. Like, is that how that's going to work? Because that's a very small backup lineup. You know, you have 6'1" Tyler Kolek, 6'2" Deuce McBride, 6'3" Dante DiVincenzo, 6'4" Josh Hart. Not a lot of size whatsoever. But then another option could be that he just keeps it at the 9-man rotation. And then does that mean that Tyler Kolek is not in the rotation and the Knicks are just not going to run a backup point guard? There are also rumors that now that Tyler Kolek is solidified as the second point guard behind Jalen Brunson, does that make Deuce McBride more expendable? I don't want to get too deep into those rumors, but I can see a possibility where the Knicks go out and trade Deuce McBride for a backup center to have behind Mitchell Robinson, because right now it's just Jericho Sims and that's pretty much it. I don't know about you guys, I wouldn't be too happy with that being my center rotation if I was the Knicks. So I could definitely see that being a avenue that the Knicks explore, whether that's trading him for Walker Kessler or Jalen Duren. I know they looked at Clint Capella to see his availability. I don't know how they'd make the money work for that. But they have a few different options. They could also go out and just re-sign Precious Achiuwa, who's still out there in free agency. It seems like there's mutual interest between the team and Precious there, so maybe that's an option. I'm not too sure. All I know is the Knicks have one of the best starting fives in the league and some fantastic depth. We just got to see how the rotation really shapes up for them. And now that we have an idea of what the Knicks could look like this coming season, let's take a look at some of their strengths. It seems very clear that the Knicks have an idea of surrounding Jalen Brunson with guys that can shoot and guys that can defend. And when you take a look at a lot of their perimeter players, they fall into those categories very well. The Knicks have 3 players that shot over 40% from 3 last season and 6 players that shot over 37% if you include Tyler Kolek's collegiate year. And then when you look defensively, almost every single one of these guys competes night in and night out. Like I said, it's clear that the Knicks have this idea to really just surround Jalen Brunson with shooters and defenders, spread the floor out for him on offense to really just let him go to work. And then on defense, we all know he's kind of undersized, kind of not the best defender. So if you surround him with other elite defenders, it should be a little bit easier to kind of hide him. And I think both of these philosophies will show for the Knicks this season. When you have guys like Jalen Brunson, who's a phenomenal shooter. Dante DiVincenzo was one of the best three-point shooters in the entire league last year. OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Deuce McBride, all of these guys are fantastic catch-and-shoot guys. There's no way you're not going to be a above-average three-point shooting team. And then also defensively, when you're looking at it, of course, it's headlined by OG and Mikal. But Dante DiVincenzo was a super underrated defender last season, if you ask me. He guarded a lot of the smaller guard perimeter players that the Knicks faced, and he did a fantastic job. Josh Hart, he doesn't really fit the 3 category, but he definitely fits the D category, competing defensively, guarding multiple positions. Even in the playoffs, he kind of did fit that 3 category. You know, when it mattered most, he was knocking down those big, important shots. And in today's NBA, shooting and defense are arguably 2 of the most important categories that you need to be good at if you want to win, and the Knicks could be elite at both. No team is perfect though, of course. We looked at their strengths. Now let's take a look at their weaknesses. When I look at this Knicks roster as it's constructed right now, their biggest weakness is the size of their depth. Like I mentioned before, they have good depth, but it's really, really small depth, and that problem compounds on top of each other when you look at their center rotation and how it's very, very thin. I don't think that this problem is the end of the world for the Knicks, because they do have guys like Julius Randle and OG Anunoby. Both of these guys could play power forward, and I would assume one of them will be on the court at all times running power forward. If not, they could run the route of Josh Hart running power forward, which we saw a lot of last season, and it worked. You know, it was effective at times, but I just don't want that to be our solidified backup option. I'd rather not have that. And then also Mikal's size at that wing position gives the Knicks a little bit of wiggle room too, considering he could play shooting guard, he could play small forward. You know, they have a lot of interchangeable guys when it comes to positions. But again, some of these bigger teams like a Milwaukee or like a OKC, I could see it being a little bit hard for the Knicks to match up with that size, especially when you look back at that bench. Like I said, though, I don't think that the Knicks are 100% done just yet. I could see them using Deuce McBride in a trade to build up some of that center depth to really, solidify that position. Also, if they go out and sign a guy like Precious Achua, he could run some power forward minutes in a pickle, if there's some injuries or whatnot. Keita Bates-Diop is also on the roster. I think that he has size and could play some backup power forward if there is an injury as well. I just don't think that either of those guys should be a solidified backup power forward option. When it comes to that, the Knicks don't really have one. But like I said, with OG, Julius, Josh Hart, I'm sure they can kind of piece that position together. And now I'm excited to introduce a brand new segment in these preseason preview videos. I don't have a specific name yet, but I'm just going to call it the fan segment right now. As you guys see, I have my boy Justin from Knicksfeed here to be joined on this Knicks episode. Justin, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Of course. It's good to be here.
And in case you guys don't know, in the description there's links to his Twitter and Instagram. Great accounts, Rand. If you don't follow him, make sure you do. But we might as well get right into it, Justin. First thing I'm really interested in is, who do you think is the most underrated player on the Knicks right now going into the season? I feel like there's a few different ways to look at it, so I'm interested to see what you're thinking.
Definitely. I think as of right now, with how things are standing with like the roster construction and everything, I know we still have the center hole right now, but probably the most underrated piece we have is probably Mitchell Robinson. I think people have kind of lost like sight of how good he was this past season before he had his big ankle injury. And people, I think overall, I think Hartenstein's now the better big, but I think people have kind of lost sight that like he was the starting big before Hartenstein kind of surged up when he got the opportunity. And we definitely have to take into account that he misses, like, I think the number is like 35 games a year on average. But I think he is a starting caliber big. Obviously, offensive rebounds, like monster on the boards, great rim protector. There's definitely some holes in his game, but I think as like a semi-starting caliber center, I think people are kind of underrating how good Mitchell Robinson can be for this team.
I agree for sure. He was one of the guys I was thinking of when I was thinking of this question. I feel like you said, the injuries is a big part of why he's so underrated. If he was healthy, I feel like it wouldn't be as big of a conversation that it is right now of like, oh my God, what are we going to do at center? Obviously, losing Hartenstein does really, really suck. But I have confidence if he stays healthy, Mitch can kind of fill that hole that's going to be left there. Other guys I was thinking too, I feel like Julius is super overhated, especially now with OG and Mikal. People are saying he doesn't fit and they want him out. It's easy to forget that he's a 2-time All-NBA player, 3-time All-Star. But the way people talk about him on Twitter, you would think he's a bum.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like usually I think with Julius, there's a lot of people that love him, and then there's people that hate him, cite his playoff woes, but there's not much of like a middle. Whereas I think for Mitchell Robinson, people have they were in love with him. They loved like what he brought to the table when he was playing, and then he kind of went out and he was gone for a while. And then Hartenstein kind of filled that gap, and people have kind of forgot where like what he really brings to the table and how good he was the playoffs before against the Cavs. It wasn't so much of the same versus Miami, but I think with the players we have now, like adding to the roster, like Mikal, OG Anunoby, everybody spacing the floor, I feel like we can really see that type of player from like Mitchell Robinson really like surge ahead in the playoffs.
100%. I feel like it's really overlooked. You talked about the Cavs series, but also the Sixers series. His defense against Joel was a huge part of us winning that series. And you kind of made it an easy segue into this next question here. Speaking of off-season additions and stuff, what is your favorite addition to the Knicks, or move, I guess, not addition? What's your favorite offseason move from the Knicks so far?
So I think it would be easy to say the Mikal trade, even though there was like I think it would be a slight overpay, but I think it makes sense given like where the Knicks are at and what avenues we kind of have to get better. But I'm gonna say Pacome Dadier. I really like that draft pick, and it's not even like I did think there was some slightly better options there. I liked Isaiah Collier, I liked Terrence Shannon, to name a few. But at the same time, I thought it was pretty I thought it was pretty cool that the Knicks front office was, after the past few years, like they drafted a lot of older players like Obi, um, quickly played for a couple of years at college. I thought it was pretty cool that they were able to draft a 18-year-old foreign French guy, um, that kind of has the tools, more of a project player, and a lot of people didn't really see that we were going to draft him at 25. And I never really pushed for, even though I was a fan of Pacome, I never really pushed for the Knicks to draft him and like within the draft circles because I didn't think it was a realistic possibility. So I thought it was pretty cool that they went ahead and drafted like a project player like him.
Yeah, no, you're definitely more tapped into the draft prospects and everything. I've seen on your Twitter, posting big boards and stuff.
Mhm.
I don't really focus too much on college. I mean, obviously, Pacome is a foreign player, like you said, so I definitely wasn't tapped into what he was doing overseas. But for the summer league, he's looked pretty good. I do, like you said, like the fact that he is young, and it kind of just adds a little bit more youth to this team because it seems like the Knicks have shied away from that in the last few seasons. Um, I am gonna go with the easy answer, like you said. Though my favorite move is the McHale trade. I've been damn near begging the Knicks to trade for McHale for like a season and a half now. The fit, I think, is gonna be great. The chemistry, the vibes, all around. This the perfect move in my mind. So I was ecstatic when it happened.
And I completely agree with that sentiment as well.
Yeah, great move. And then into our last question right here. What are your expectations for the Knicks?
So right now, I think if we're as currently constructed, everybody stays healthy, which obviously we didn't really get to see that last season besides that January run where we went something like 11-2, or I don't have the number off the
I
top
think
of
it
my
was
head.
even better than that, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
slightly
a
better
great
than that,
record.
but test to how good we were right there. But I think at minimum, if we're healthy, I think we're the second best team in the East. I think if we had Hartenstein back, I think that would have even pushed us beyond Boston. I feel like we still have to see who we're going to get as a backup center or even like starter caliber center. If it's Jalen Duran, Walker Kessler, one of those names. I know Clint Capella was another name that was mentioned. But as currently constructed, I think we can compete with Boston. I think go as far as the finals.
I definitely agree. This Knicks team is probably the best Knicks team I've seen in my lifetime. I'm super excited for this next coming season. The number one thing, like you said, as constructed right now, with Mitchell Robinson being the only center, that's like my little caveat that's
Mhm.
making me worry a little bit. But you can't really predict injuries. So if we're not looking at that, yeah, this team could be one of the top in the NBA.
Yep.
Well, Justin, I want to thank you again for coming on. Like I said, guys, if you are not already following him on Instagram and Twitter, link in the description right now. Runs great Knicks pages, puts out great content all year round. Make sure you do that. Thank you, Justin.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Now it is time to give the ceiling, the floor, and my expectations for the Knicks. We're going to start off on the high note, of course, and talk about the Knicks ceiling. And I think that the ceiling for this Knicks team is NBA champions. I really do think that this roster has enough to compete. I think it's in the top tier, contending tier. Obviously, you have the Boston Celtics that they would have to go through out east, which would be a struggle for any team in the NBA. But I do think that the Knicks have the tools to really beat a team like that. Then when you look at the floor scenario for the Knicks, I could see them being as low as the 4 seed and losing in the second round to one of the top tier teams in the Eastern Conference, guys like Boston or Philly or Milwaukee. The most likely scenario in my eyes for the Knicks, though, is that they will finish as the 2nd seed behind the Boston Celtics in the regular season, and they will have a very good playoff run, making it to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they will at least be competitive. I don't know if they'll win or lose against Boston if Boston makes it there again, but I think they will at least be competitive and make it a 6 or 7 game series. Let me know what you guys think about the Knicks, though. I hope you guys liked this first episode of the new season of preseason previews. As you see, I'm trying new ways to innovate and make these videos bigger and better than last season. we're gonna have all 30 teams come out throughout from here to the start of the regular season. So make sure you're subscribed already if you're not, so you don't miss out on your favorite team. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave it a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social media, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch y'all.